Hello, I'm Polly Jean Harrison, the features editor of the Fintech Times, and I am here with Bill Bruno, the CEO of Celebrus. Bill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Polly, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Well, it's a bit miserable weather-wise where I am, but otherwise we're peachy keen.
It's a
But
bit
thank
cold here in Chicago as well,
yeah,
so I feel your pain.
amazing. Well, it's so great for you to join me today. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I'm really excited to hear more all about Celebrus and the kind of things that you do. But first of all, why don't you just tell me a little bit more about Celebrus itself and the kind of offerings that you have?
Sure, absolutely. I would be happy to, and thanks for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. And Celebrus, our mission is quite simple. It's to improve the relationships between brands and consumers via better data. And that what is better data, right? It's data that isn't a pain to capture. It's data that makes sense and it's accurate. It's data that's compliant and in line with regulatory standards as we're deployed in over 30 countries around the globe today. And it's data that you can actually use, whether that's on the marketing side to ultimately improve experiences, to get you to buy more things, to get you to build more brand loyalty, or all the way on the other side of the spectrum on the fraud side, whether it's using data to protect your money, right, protect your investments, make sure it's actually you before that purchase, before you fill out that application, before you log in. And ultimately what Celebrus is as a platform is software that does just that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you kind of touched on a few bits there, but what is the value that businesses can get from utilizing their data? Because I feel like it's still a bit of an
Sure.
untapped potential in some cases, right?
That's a really astute observation, Polly. I think, from my perspective, I've been in the data and analytics industry my entire career. And every survey from the beginning of my career till now talks about how difficult it is to get the right data to the right place
Mm.
at the right time. Every survey, Forrester, Gartner, otherwise mentions how difficult digital data is to manage because it's unstructured generally in most solutions. But they all talk about the value, right? And if you can solve it, if you can get past those hurdles, then it can become very valuable, right? I've always spoken to about data as it being currency in our industry, right? If you're doing anything that's consumer focused and you have any kind of poor foundation for data, then ultimately you're not going to be as successful as you could. You might have some wins here and there, but if you're trying to build a sustainable program around building those better relationships, whether it's protecting the money or building better experiences or something in between, and you're doing that with subpar data, with data that's not compliant and data that you can't bring together with all of the other information you might have about me as your customer, then it's going to really undercut you down the road and it's going to kill some of the momentum for whatever goals you might have for your business.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. But I guess the question is, how can companies use their data? How can they develop their
Yeah.
data strategy in order to use it effectively then?
I think for most organizations, it's time to think differently.
Mhm.
Whether when you look around the globe today and you see things like Apple Intelligent Tracking Prevention, Mozilla Total Cookie Protection, you see the things that are in iOS 17 that I've already installed on my phone, or all the new operating systems. They're all restricting what you would generally classify as third-party solutions. And what that's ultimately doing then is making a lot of the existing technology that might be in a business's MarTech stack unusable as it pertains to customer, right? And so the first thing that I think organizations need to be doing is thinking differently. I've always seen this decision process sort of plague organizations. You have these visions of grandeur, things that you want to do for your consumers, and you end up settling because the technology in your stack today perhaps has limitations that is not allowing you to do that full deployment of whatever it is you want to deliver for a customer. So what you end up seeing is the requirements sort of scale back to fit with the current landscape. So for me, the first thing that organizations really should be doing is looking at the technologies they're using, better understand what data they have, the limitations of that data, and frankly, the limitations of that technology so that they can start making better decisions for their upcoming fiscal years in how to change that and make data more usable.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess does that come with challenges then? Because, like we said, there's a little that gap there. If it was easy, everyone would be doing
Yeah.
it already, right? So, what are the challenges?
Yeah, there's an incredible amount of challenges, right? I mean, everything I just said sounds great in a world that's all sunshine and rainbows, but we unfortunately don't live in a world like that,
Mhm.
right? And there's all kinds of challenges. There's siloed business challenges where different business groups aren't talking to each other. There's in some cases, the divide between business and technology teams, which ultimately, to be successful in today's world, that can't be there. And there's politics, right? There might be people in the organization that put their stake in or their reputation in a business on the selection of a technology that perhaps is not delivering. And to admit that that technology maybe isn't the right fit sometimes comes with a bit of a political burden. And I've seen it all run the gamut in conversations with customers, right? But one thing that is 100% true and works 100% of the time is that when you actually make those changes, there is an unbelievable amount of value on the other end. It might be a bit of short-term pain, but the long-term effects of that and what you see with brand affinity and loyalty, especially given how impatient we are as consumers these days, can go a really long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'd really like to jump back to something you mentioned at the beginning in terms of using data to help protect against fraud. I'd love to know a little bit more about that and exactly how that can be
Yep.
done.
I think that we've all heard, and in every interview, everybody talks about the pandemic era, right, or the COVID era, right? And there were a lot of things that happened technologically during that time that perhaps the world and individuals as consumers wasn't prepared for. As people went more virtual, it put a lot of stress on brands' systems to stay secure. You're no longer having those face-to-face interactions, and everything moving digital means that it moves at the speed of digital, which is alarmingly fast. Even when you look at generative AI and all of the buzzwords around that, right? It's all about delivering things more quickly than we had done before. And so what that means ultimately, when you think about if you walk into a store to make a purchase or you're making a purchase online, you're using your phone, you can do this in seconds, right? What if somebody has stolen your phone, or what if somebody has gotten your login credentials, right? There's a very, very small window to try to determine whether or not it's actually Polly making that purchase or if somebody has gotten access to her information, right? And we all hate having our identity stolen. We all hate having, to get new credit cards because somebody got access to our information, right? And so in fraud prevention, given how fast it's moving and how sophisticated fraud has gotten all across the globe, it's something that you need better data in the moment as evidence to determine, is it me or is it you browsing that site or filling out that application or making that purchase? And the only way to really do that is with a much more granular, biometrically driven data set for digital to help build that evidence profile and make it possible to stop the fraud before it happens.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and hopefully something that will be very helpful in this fight against fraud that we seem
Yeah,
to be constantly battling in.
yeah.
But I know Celebrus launched a new digital analytics platform earlier this month. I'd love to know a little bit more about that and like what are your hopes for this
Sure.
service. Let's share some wins.
No, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, we were very excited to bring that forward. As a brand, the Celebrus platform, clients have been relying on our platform for years to bring data to the right places for them to fix a lot of the gaps, candidly, that we've been talking about today, right? One of the things that has really come under fire in the industry around the globe, whether it's through Europe and you look at the things and the articles related to Google or just general data sharing compliance challenges. In the US, for our healthcare system, it's governed by a policy called HIPAA. And HIPAA in January of this year made statements that you could no longer use third-party trackers to capture patient health information. So all around the globe, you have these traditional web or digital analytics applications that exist outside of a brand's four walls, right? You're sending customer or patient data out to those systems to build reporting that you're using to democratize data through your organization. Those platforms have gotten subpar in terms of data quality. They're getting heavily restricted for a lot of the reasons that I've already mentioned. And so we saw this as an opportunity to fix that. I'll be the first to tell you, and I've taken the stance my entire career, reporting is a commodity. It's necessary, but there's not a lot of groundbreaking things you're going to do with reporting, right? The groundbreaking thing that we've done with Celebrus Digital Analytics, or CDA, is we've taken all of the things marketers love about reporting and we've built it in a true dedicated first-party environment that never leaves their four walls. So they get all the benefits of the reporting, but they get it combined with better data, more accurate individual metrics, better profiles, and full control over that data so that it never leaves their environment and they can comfortably report on information and use that to do their jobs better on a daily basis without worrying about all those compliance hurdles and restrictions that are impacting all of our competition. And that we were really excited to do. It's something that we launched in stealth actually 6-7 months ago. We've got several clients already using it, that we're using it as part of our sort of beta testing, if you will. But we publicly launched that within the last couple of weeks, and it's been very, very positively received in the market.
Amazing. I'm so pleased to hear. Hopefully it continues to be a success for you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'd love to move away very slightly from sort of data, though you can
Sure.
talk about data a bit more, but I'd love to know kind of what trends in the fintech industry that you're seeing at the moment are exciting you. Obviously, we're getting to the end of 2023.
Mhm.
So we've nearly a whole year of fintech. What have you seen this year that has been really stuck out to you?
Yeah, it's prediction season, isn't it?
Yes.
I think, from my perspective, what's been really interesting, I'll talk through some of the challenges and then I'll talk through some of the promise,
Mhm.
right? And some of the things that I think are the silver lining in all of this. Regulatory bodies, whether it's throughout Europe, in the US, are starting to really crack down on how data is used, particularly consumer data, how upfront that is, how clear it is on where that data is going and how it's being used. And I think that's going to continue. It's never been more difficult to be a marketer. And I unfortunately don't see that getting any easier with a lot of these archaic and traditional approaches. The silver lining is the growth in AI. Generative AI, we use it throughout our business. We've built machine learning into our products. It's a very heavy investment area for us as a software company. But it's also something that's creating really unique opportunities to build very cool customer experiences and ultimately help build better relationships with those consumers. And it is underpinned by that word data, right? You have to have better data. And I think what you'll start to see more and more of, and it's something that I could pontificate for hours on, is the ethical use of AI, and trying to eliminate bias in a lot of the decisions that are being made, right? If you and I both go to a website and we receive different offers because some AI model or machine learning model chose to do that, we need to validate that that's real, right? That was based on our actual backgrounds and interests and not based on some bias in a machine learning model. And I think how we utilize that, how artificial intelligence does get deployed in sort of day-to-day life between brands and consumers, particularly in fintech, given how virtual that has now become, is something that I think we're going to see a lot of in the coming year.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Obviously, and then kind of leading on from that, what do you think is going to happen in 2024? You just kind of gave a bit of an insight there, but
Yeah.
what do you think is coming next for the industry, both, I guess, in data and just in general?
I think what I've seen throughout my entire career is what's old is new again.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've been talking about with my team and that we've been talking about with our customers and prospects, you have this whole concept of a CDP, a customer data platform, right? And it started originally as bring a bunch of powerful technology together to build better customer experiences. And it kind of turned into this, well, maybe there's a silver bullet solution. And lo and behold, there's not, right? And so you start seeing things like a composable CDP, which is frankly the original definition of what people thought about when they were talking about building a customer data platform. And I think you'll see organizations going back to basics a bit, realizing that perhaps some of these false promises and silver bullets were not that at all. We see a lot of under delivery and lack of performance in those types of approaches. And I think what you'll see is organizations starting to realize that you can't just jump to the shiny objects of we're going to build this amazing experience, we're going to personalize for consumers, we're going to deploy generative AI. I think you'll see customers and brands take a step back and go, you know what? We don't have good data. We need to fix that. And I think that's been a constant ebb and flow for years in our industry. And one year is heavily focused on the shiny objects, then the next year takes a step back and realizes that they weren't ready because something was missing. And I think this next year will be a sort of revisit of the foundations that these MarTech stacks have been built on in most brands.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you for that insight. I mean, I'd love to then go back to Celebrus and find out more about what your plans are for the future. What's next on your roadmap?
No, excellent. Thank you. And obviously we talked about one of our biggest launches in the Celebrus Digital Analytics. We do two main launches a year, and we've been on that cadence for quite some time. So we do have a launch coming up here towards the end of this calendar year. around the holidays with some fantastic feature enhancements. Everything that we do is kind of built on three core tenets, I suppose. One is what we see in the industry, and as our engineering teams and myself and others are looking at the landscape. What can we get out in front of that we think is going to happen in the future? The second is our customer input and advisory board. No surprise there, right? There's things coming out in the next release that were specifically asked for by customers. And then the third is through our vast partner network. We've got a global network of solution integrators, technology partners, and there's a lot that they're funneling into us that they're hearing from their customers that would be beneficial for us to sort of fill a key gap in. And in this most recent release, we had the digital analytics application, but we also had several new machine learning models around things like bot detection. We've built the ability for you to embed and build and train your own models within the product. And so we're really trying to adapt and focus on how we can help customers get more value from the data that Celebrus collects and contextualizes for them in milliseconds. And how do we help automate a lot of that and make it easy to use, right? I suppose the analogy would be, you've got a haystack, there's a lot of needles in there, but you need a solution that can help you find it. And that's where we're spending a lot of our time and where we're investing a lot of our efforts in building out the product.
Amazing. Well, that all sounds really exciting. I hope that all goes really well for you. But Bill, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really great to chat to you and learn a little bit more about the kind of things that Celebrus are doing.
Likewise, Polly, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time, and it's been great to meet you.
Brilliant. Thank you.